Hi everyone, something a little bit different today. So rather than all the code we've been going through for jumping and health and damage and collisions, I guess this is collisions, we've got a snooker table. So we can see that all the balls just move around as they do. We can see the white ball goes everywhere and stops. And we can see that the point of the game is to try and knock all the reds into all the pockets. There we go, done. And the white respawns. So it's not polished in any way, but it does what it says on the tin. And it all comes down to the white ball and trying to get collisions with tiles working. So what the white ball does is that every 0.1 seconds of its life, it sets its current speed and current y speed, so x speed and y speed, I guess you could say, to the x speed of itself and the y speed of itself. The reason that you need that is that if it hits an actor of tiles, you need to work out what its y speed and x speed should be, depending on where it got hit. So what we've got is, we've got a collision attribute, so we can turn it on and off. We know it's a private attribute. So if collision equals 0, we haven't collided. We set collision to 1 when we hit an actor of tiles, and depending on what side was hit, so if the top of the ball was hit or the left side of the ball was hit, so on and so forth, we should see that we set the y speed or x speed depending on if it's the top and bottom or left and right. So left and right is x, top and bottom is y, to the negation of either the y speed or the x speed. Now the negation is the negative of it, which is exactly what we want, because what we want to do if the ball hits a tile is for it to rebound. Now that's all this does here. Very quickly after it's done all this, it says, right, that's the collision done, and it sets collision back to 0. If you're feeling clever, try a boolean, because that works just as well. And with that is literally all that's going on here. So we can see when created we set stationary to 1, because stationary, so are you still, if stationary is 1, we are still, we set x speed and y speed to 0. And you might notice that I didn't use friction because it's a very, very quick setup in the actual game. It just stops after 3 seconds. That's because if stationary equals 1, you can press up, down, left or right to drive the ball in a certain direction. And then once you've done that, you set stationary to 0, so you can't actually do these commands anymore, and it pushes itself sharply into the direction of choice. So if we're going up, we know that's -1 in the y direction but 0 in the x direction. If it's left, for example, it's -1 in the x direction but 0 in the y direction, and every single one is basically the same with a different direction. And after 3 seconds, it sets stationary back to 1, so the ball actually stops. And that is the be-all and end-all of it. We also had some red balls. There we go. They've got exactly the same thing. So this current speed, current x speed, current y speed, and they've got collision, and they've got the negate speed as well. Basically, it's all the same collision idea, because of course they're all balls bouncing off the same green edges. I don't know what they are. The things next to the pockets. And again, we've got some friction being set there just in case it sort of doesn't quite work. You can see they were slowing down quite nicely. Okay, so that is your challenge. Recreate this, remembering that it's using current x speed, current y speed as attributes for all the different types of balls. If it's stationary, you need to make sure it's actually stationary by setting its x speed and y speed to 0. And if it's stationary, you should then have this code here, so up, down, left, right. You can go a bit further if you want. There's some you could code in diagonal if you really wanted to, but you should be able to set up this scene relatively simply. Of course, the biggest part to make sure it's realistic is the collision, to make sure if it hits a tile that it bounces off correctly, which is by negating its speed. Okay, it's only a small thing. It works quite nicely. You will need to sort of create your scene just like this. I mean, you've noticed my tiles are grey, green and black just to make it really obvious. The scene has a few interesting situations. So you can see there's lots and lots and lots of the same thing. When an actor of actors enters a region, so if you look at our regions, they're over each of the pockets, then we kill that actor. Okay, and we also have if the white ball is killed after 1 second, create a white ball again, because of course you want to be able to restart that situation. The red balls don't reappear. And of course, enter is repressed, you can reload if you want it. Okay, that is everything. Have a little try. You've got everything you need at some point in the video, so pause as necessary, and it should all work out. If you can do it a different way, let me know. I'll be interested. Okay. One thing that you might all like, GDC did get cancelled this year because of the coronavirus, which is why we're all inside at the moment. But the one upside to that, I guess, is the fact that they actually are releasing all of their lectures and everything online for free, which is fantastic, especially if any of you are, well, hopefully you are all budding game developers. That you can find them on GDC Vault or on their YouTube channel. It's definitely worth looking through. Some of the best lectures I've heard on games development have been from these guys, or at least the people at the conference. Anyway, I definitely think it's worth you having a look if you've got some spare time, and all their historical ones, the ones from the past, are there as well. If nothing else, I recommend the Magic the Gathering 20 Things They Learnt version. That was a few years ago. Have a little look.